So today we are going to speak on this tutorial number 3, basically the foreign exchange market. What I'm trying to do is that basically they are the Australian foreign exchange market with Sri Lankan foreign exchange market on comparative basis, so that we know how place, what is the development in Sri Lanka. That is also to say that Australian markets are basically followed by the Sri Lankan central bank and the markets. Can you all mute the speaker, please? Can you all mute the speaker, please? Right, okay. Thank you. So, Australian market, foreign exchange market also grew after deregulation and the floating of the Australian dollar in early 1980s. So, Sri Lankan market, foreign exchange market, there were basically 3 phases or 3 stages of deregulation. Namely, as you all might have heard, up to 1977, there was a fixed exchange rate regime. The currency rates in terms of rupees were announced by the central bank, say the US dollar value in rupee terms and the sterling pound value, and those days there was no euro. There was some European currency like Deutsche Mark, French franc, Austrian shillings, and so on and so forth, and French franc. And also Indian rupee and Pakistan rupee was also quoted by the central bank. And this quoting by the central bank prior to 1977 did not change for a while. When I say a while, it would have been a few months, once in 2 months, 3 months, and when the central bank thought it necessary to change, only they changed it. So central bank used to issue circular giving the rupee value of those currencies that were important for Sri Lankan trade, international trade. And those circular was sent to the commercial banks, and they applied those rates to the customers. That was a fixed exchange rate rating. Why do we call it fixed exchange rate? Is that until the next change comes, maybe in months, the rate was fixed. And that rate was valid by announcement by the Central Bank of Sri Lanka. Then came in 1977 the famous market orientation or market economy under the President J.R. Jayawardena. And then we stepped into managed float or a crawling band. Why do we call a crawling band? Is that for each currency, the central bank, for the US dollar, the central bank announced the bid and offer at which the central bank would buy and sell with the commercial banks at the end of the day's operation, because basically the central bank open market window was open to the commercial banks, and they bought the dollar at the announced rate and sold the dollar at their offer announced rate. So, and basically every morning by about 7:30 in the morning, prior to the market started, early morning, central bank used to announce the rate through, they used to pick up a broker line and then announce the rate that today's bid is per dollar is so much, today's offer is per dollar is so much. So soon, through the brokers, all the commercial banks were informed that the central bank bid is so much, central bank offer is so much. So this managed float or the crawling band, why do we call it crawling band, is that on a daily basis, say on Monday, they announce the rate, bid offer with a spread of about ₹1.50 per US dollar. Suppose it's only say 50 rupees and 51.50. And the next day, it changed depending on the statistical review and research by the statistic department or the branch at the central bank. Basically, what happened was the central bank got the imports and export and other trade activity figures from all the commercial banks. Naturally, the central bank importing huge amounts and spending foreign exchange and exporting a smaller, comparatively small amount and earning foreign exchange. There was a bigger demand for the dollar, and naturally, day by day, we saw the US dollar rate drifting to a higher number or depreciating Sri Lankan rupee or appreciating US dollar. So for example, on Monday, if the dollar was quoted 50 rupees by the central bank and bid and the offer 51.50 with a spread of ₹1.50. On Tuesday, it would have been of 5 cents or 10 cents on the higher side, naturally. Say 50 rupees and 10 cents and 51 rupees and 60 cents bid and offer. So what do you think would have the exporters and importers would have done? Anyone who was dealing with foreign exchange. All the importers who had to buy dollars or foreign currency, as soon as they got to know that their trade commitment or confirmation, import LC or whatever, to import goods or to buy foreign exchange from commercial bank, they rushed and bought the foreign exchange. If it was a future transactions, if it is import happening in 3 months' time or 6 months' time or next year, they booked a forward exchange contract with the commercial bank. So there was huge demand for the dollar or foreign currency and supply of foreign exchange, supply of rupees. On the other hand, exporters who received foreign currency or US dollar, they were reluctant to sell their dollars today because today's rate is definitely next day's rate is going to be 5 cents, 10 cents, or 25 cents up. Right? So therefore, there was a delaying tactic adopted by the exporters or those who earned foreign exchange, even those who received foreign exchange from their relatives working abroad or friends, gifts from friends, some sort of who were in possession of dollars of foreign exchange, they delayed surrendering or selling the dollars of foreign exchange to the country, to the banks, and they are buy to the central bank. So naturally, this aggravated the situation, and over decades, central bank managed some or other. But in the year 2001, after consultation with the market participants, central bank, I think the day was 21st January 2001, to be exactly, central bank announced that they will not be announcing the US dollar value of bid and offer anymore, and for the market to find their own dollar bid and offer in the market. So it was putting someone on the high ocean at the deep end. So I can very well remember I was heading the Bankers Note Treasury at that time. I can very well remember that rupee was quoted, so the US dollar was quoted 93 rupees and 50 cents or something. That was around the approximate value. But all of a sudden, with this sudden announcement by the central bank, the dollar rupee rate climbed to about 113 or 115 rupees per dollar at the spur of the moment. Then it swung back to 87 rupees. Finally settled down at 94 rupees. So there was no central bank announcement, but among the commercial banks who were dealing in foreign exchange through the brokers, the bid and offer continued. And the dealers got the hang of it, and then they settled down at 94 rupees and 50 cents or something. And from that day, 21st January 2001, the floating rupee started. So these are the three phases. Up to 1977, fixed exchange rate regime. From 1977 to 2001, managed float of the rupee. And from 2001 onwards, free float of the rupee. So these are the three important phases of deregulation of Sri Lankan rupee. Please note down these three important stages, because for your studies it will be important, and also for your exam it will be important. Please note, I'll repeat again. Up to 1977, a fixed exchange rate regime, where the central bank announced the rupee value of few important foreign currencies like US dollars, sterling pounds, Deutsche Mark, French franc, Swiss franc, Austrian shillings, Indian rupee, Pakistan rupee, Bangladesh taka. There were in all about 14 or 15 currencies. The bid and offer rate was announced, and then central bank did not change that until they saw it necessary to change it, going through the trade volumes reported by the commercial banks. Then from 1977 up to 2001, managed float, where the central bank announced only the bid and offer rupee value for the US dollar. And central bank dealt with the commercial banks only in the US dollar. When there was excess purchase foreign currency by the banks, at the end of the day, central bank window was open to buy the excess foreign exchange in the form of US dollar. And when they have a shortage of foreign exchange in the market, central bank open market window was open to sell the foreign exchange at their selling rate to anybody, any bank who wanted foreign exchange. So that was the managed float. Then from the 21st January 2001, it was free float, and central bank did not announce the value of the dollar, and central bank asked the market to find their own bid and offer for US dollar and other foreign currencies. But naturally, from that day onwards, the US dollar rate prevailed, and we will in the slides learn or study how banks calculated the rupee value of other foreign currency, dollar rupee value of the US dollar. So this was similar to Australian deregulation. Australian deregulation happened in 1980s, whereas in Sri Lanka, the free float of the rupee happened in 2001. And then also there were exchange control regulations restricting the current account transactions and the capital account transactions. And by an agreement signed by the government of Sri Lanka through the central bank with the International Monetary Fund, IMF, in 1994, which was famous, called Article 8 status. Article 8 status. The current account transactions, mainly the import and export and foreign travel transactions, were removed from the exchange controls from 1994. Capital account transactions, where somebody wanted to migrate to some other country and then by selling their assets in Sri Lanka, capital account transactions, when they wanted to take large sums of money and travel abroad, were restricted, and that they were required to apply through their respective commercial banks to the controller exchange, and on a case-by-case, controller exchange used to allow capital account transactions. So these exchange control regulations were essentially implemented to protect the foreign reserves of the country. Hello?
Sir, excuse me, sir.
Sorry?
So, was the dollar deposits was also floated after 2001?
Now, I'm talking of the subject is on the foreign exchange, no, my dear.
Okay.
Deposit is, dollar deposits happen freely because that was dealt in interest rate market. What I'm talking is the foreign exchange rate, dollar rupee rate.
Okay, got it, sir. What was the reason after 2001 the rupee was floated? Because central bank cannot control it.
That is exactly right. What I was saying is that with the crawling band, day by day rupee depreciation, it was famously known as leading and lagging. All the importers and spenders of foreign currency, they grabbed the foreign exchange from the bankers at the first sight of the trade contract, whether imports or any other payment commitment to overseas, they entered into forward exchange contract. So there was a artificially created demand for the foreign currency, especially the US dollar. That was the leading. Then lagging happened by the exporters and those who owned foreign currency, who was to receive foreign currency income and were required to convert to the rupee. They were lagging behind because next day they were sure that they would get at least 50 cents higher in rupee terms for each dollar. So leading and lagging propelled the central bank. They were not getting the supply of foreign exchange as they should come because those sectors, exporters and other sectors who was earning foreign exchange did not sell the foreign exchange to the banks, and the country did not get the foreign exchange at the right time. But on the other hand, spenders of foreign exchange, like importers who wanted to pay foreign exchange, they grabbed foreign exchange through in the spot market or forward market by way of forward exchange contracts. As soon as they knew they were negotiating the contracts with the foreign parties. So there was a scarcity created in the foreign reserves of the central bank. I can remember in the late 90s, central bank virtually went into red deficit foreign reserves because the supply of foreign exchange who had the ability to keep the earn the foreign currency in accounts abroad, they kept it there. They did not bring it to Sri Lanka. And eventually central bank had to bring in the export proceeds requirement to bring the export proceeds to Sri Lanka by about 90 days and 120 days. Rule has to be brought in. So because of that, only the managed float had to be abandoned by the central bank, because from that day onwards, those who want to hoard the foreign currency earnings abroad or any other accounts without converting to rupees did not have that proper incentives by day depreciating rupee or appreciating US dollar. All right. It was very much evident that up to 2001, the annual average rate of depreciation of rupee was in the region of 20% or 21% per annum. Annual average depreciation of the rupee. But from soon after the free floating or 2001, the annual average depreciation of rupee was highest was 8%. And there were years that the rupee depreciation was negative or rupee appreciated against the US dollar and the foreign currency, especially in the year 2004 where the tsunami happened. There were a lot of donors giving aid and assistance to Sri Lankan entities, government and NGOs and individuals on sympathy ground. There were a lot of aid flowed into Sri Lanka. And then furthermore, the multinational, supranational organizations like IMF and donor agencies gave debt moratorium to the government of Sri Lanka. Government did not have to pay the debt installment for some years. So the spending of foreign exchange or outflow of foreign exchange was limited, or there was no outflow. So rupee appreciated in those years when the inflows were large and outflows were nominally not there or nil outflows. So that was the result of the managed float being abandoned and then converting to free float. Okay, so effectively then from 2001 onward, the rupee floated by the central bank, to be precise, on the 21st January 2001. Anybody have any question on that? No, we'll go to the next slide. So Australian market strategically located after New York closes for the previous day and just before Asian markets opened since mid-1980s, had been in the top 10 in terms of the turnover, Australian markets. So equally, Sri Lankan market strategically located between Asian market and Middle Eastern markets and European and New York markets. So geographical locations wise, I would say the Sri Lankan market is better positions than the Australian market, but still the macroeconomic fundamentals and the fiscal discipline of the regulators or the governments were better managed by the Australian market, and therefore Australia developed year by year, and Sri Lanka is still, I would say, in the developing category in the countries, in the categorization in the world. I think there was a YouTube clip, I sent it to Menaka to share with you all. I wonder whether I could ask him. he shared it with everyone, how the dollar rupee value changed each decade by decade, or once in 2 decades. If I can remember roughly, in the year about 1978, it was about 7 or 8 rupees per dollar. And 1980s, it came to about 40 or 50 rupees per dollar. Then, as I told you a while ago, in 2001, it was 93 rupees per dollar. And in the recent past, we very well aware that somewhere in 2010, 2011, it was about 130 rupees per dollar. And in 2015, it was about 150 rupees per dollar. And 2019, it was 180 rupees per dollar. And in 2021, it is 200 rupees per dollar. So, but Australian dollar did not depreciate that rapidly, and it did not go in a one-way direction like that, because they manage their resources well, and their export-import scenario was well balanced, or more balanced than Sri Lankan. So therefore, the macroeconomic variables were better managed in Australia. So the learning objectives: theories of determinants of foreign exchange rates, the structure of the market, interpretation, calculation, and use of foreign exchange rates, issues concerning foreign exchange dealing. So these are the points that are objectives of learning of this presentation. So the market structure. Currencies are traded as a commodity. We know the US dollar main currency, and then euro, and then now the emerging currency is yuan. And then there is a wholesale market, mainly between the licensed commercial banks, who are known as authorized dealers. And there is a over-the-counter, OTCs, over-the-counter market between the retail customers and the authorized dealers or the licensed commercial banks. Let me explain a little bit on the authorized dealer concept. I was telling you that there was a controller of exchange at the Central Bank of Sri Lanka. The Parliament Act, Exchange Control Act number 49 of 1953, going by the Montreal Law Act 1949, Central Bank created a position called Control of Exchange. And his task was to ensure and preserve the foreign exchange reserves of the country. So he had to appoint, because Central Bank did not deal directly with the retail customers, and they cannot deal with the Central Bank. Central Bank cannot deal with the retail customers, importers and exporters, and those who want to buy foreign exchange and travel abroad, or those who want to sell foreign exchange after receiving the work remittances and so on. Central Bank appointed the licensed commercial banks as authorized dealers. This was secondary to obtaining the commercial banking license from the Monetary Board of Central Bank of Sri Lanka. As you know, anybody who wants to start up a business have the necessary resources and the skill, employees, and then management, and to apply to the central bank through the Bank Supervision Department to the central bank and obtained the license for a commercial bank to operate as a bank. And after reviewing, the monetary board will grant the license to operate as a commercial bank. I explained to you how we obtained the license for Cargill's Bank. Cargill's Bank, the latest approved commercial bank in Sri Lanka by the monetary board of Central Bank in the year 2014. So similarly, after getting the commercial banking license, the bank has to apply to Controller Exchange and obtain the authorized dealer license. Have you all seen that white large sticker in front of each branch of a bank, authorized dealer? That authorized dealer license is delegating the Controller Exchange powers to deal with the foreign exchange large sums, foreign currencies, transacting foreign currencies. The Controller Exchange delegates those powers to those banks with conditions of reporting transactions, recording transactions, and then also adhering to the rules and regulations issued by the Central Bank of Sri Lanka and the Controller Exchange, and compliance to various other regulations. Those authorized dealers are compelled to perform the transactions in the retail market and cover their positions, and then also manage the foreign exchange risk by purchases and sales, and then cannot have more sales than purchases, more purchases than sales. Overbought or sold situations has to be managed to prevent any undue risk on the bank particularly, and then also cumulatively to the entire economy. So each bank was given a limit, how much they can run overbought, how much they can run oversold in foreign currencies. So those are the conditions imposed to the authorized exchange dealers, authorized dealers by the Controller Exchange. So basically, the wholesale market is dominated by the commercial banks. Is dominated by the commercial banks, and participants are being the central bank finally to buy or sell from the commercial banks. And also the commercial banks themselves. Now the number of commercial banks stands about 23, I guess, after the exit of Axis Bank and ICICI Bank. And with the entry of Cargill's Bank, the numbers of licensed commercial banks is 23. The other development is that the nation's NSB, or National Savings Bank, was granted the authorized dealer status to accept foreign currency deposits, NRFC and PFC accounts, and then also start imports and exports business. So there are a total of 23 participants or authorized dealers in Sri Lanka. So the wholesale market, I did not explain much on that competition, because between them they buy and sell whenever they have excess or shortage through the money brokers. And the over-the-counter market or retail market happens at each branch of the authorized dealer licensed commercial bank. Whenever the customers, Sri Lankans, want to buy dollars or foreign currency or sell dollars or foreign currency with the bank using their rupees. So this is the market structure at large in Sri Lanka. So basically, the money brokers help or assist in the wholesale market, but the money brokers also do have capacity, or if they want to, if they are creative enough to market the retail business to each and every authorized dealer and then get a commission. I guess some money brokers explore that, but they need the support of the other market participants and the central bank to officially incorporate such business into their list of activities. We shall discuss all that when it comes to the third semester or fourth semester, where the market deepening of the market discussion is going on, will be carried out. However, the market structure remains in that manner. So participants, dealers, mainly the banks, and clients, companies, government enterprises, and financial institutions, and the retail customers, importers and exporters, and so forth. Then the money brokers and information providers like Reuters, Telerate, and Bloomberg. They do provide latest market rates, display in their screens as and when the market changes happens. Plus, they also enable the large market players of the wholesale market to communicate with each other and then bid or sell foreign exchange like what they do through a broker. And the central bank. In the case of Australia, there is Reserve Bank of Australia. In the case of Sri Lanka, it is the Central Bank of Sri Lanka. And the International Operations Department, or IOD, happens to manage this trading, and the rupee fund cash flows and fund flows are managed by the Domestic Operations Department of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka. For this operation, all the licensed commercial banks who are authorized dealers are required to open a bank account at the Domestic Operations Department of Central Bank of Sri Lanka and manage the rupee cash flows, basically payment for foreign currency in the wholesale market and the receipt for rupees in wholesale markets happens through the central bank account through the RTGS system, or real-time cross settlement system. And basically it is called RTGS account. And the central bank gives access to their computer to look at the operations of their account with the DOD to each and every bank who authorize dealers. They can monitor their debits and credits and expected debits and credits, which are to be posted by the DOD of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka. So this is basically, these are the basic market participants. So as you all know, so the money brokers business, the big competition comes from the dealing systems of Reuters and Bloomberg, where each and every bank are able to also deal direct, avoiding the brokers. So therefore, the brokers' services, service orientation to the large licensed commercial banks matters for the volumes of business. So now we come to the interpretation of foreign exchange rates. The value of price of one currency is stated in another currency. That's the definition of foreign exchange. value of one currency is expressed in another currency, in terms of another currency. Value of one currency in the definition of foreign exchange rate. So for this definition rate, for this definition, when we go into deep, there is always one commodity currency or the unit currency. When we say US dollar 1 equals 201 rupees, the unit currency is US dollar. Then the term currency is second, term currency is rupee. Term currency is rupee. So commodity currency or the unit currency is always the currency of which the value is expressed in terms of another currency. Rupees, example, 1 US dollar equals Sri Lankan rupee 201. So term currency here is rupees 201. So the bank or dealer who quotes the rate will always quote a buy and sell rate or bid and offer rate. Example, Australian dollar, 1 Australian dollar equals US dollars 0.7850, bid 0.7870, offer or sell. But for the other party or the customer has to sell at the bank's bid rate 0.7850 and buy at the bank's selling rate or offer rate 0.7870. That is understood. Basically, when a transaction happens, when there's a market rate quoted, the other market taker has to deal at the bid price, sell at the bid price of the market maker, and market taker has to buy at the sell price of the market maker. That is also understood, isn't it? Basic logic. And I'm sure you all being engaged in the day-to-day transactions, you all should understand it very much better. So I did not spend much time on this. So basically market maker and market taker. Market maker is the bank who quotes the rate, bid and offer. Say rupees 201.50 and 201.70, bid and offer. So if anyone wants to buy from that, buy dollars from that quote, has to pick the rate 201.70 and give 270 rupees for each dollar that they buy. So basically the spread of 20 cents is the profit margin of the market maker. It's a process of liquidity creation. When there is a market quote is available, that means there is somebody who is willing to buy at a rate, and then there's some at the same time willing to sell at the offer rate. So creation of liquidity, facilitating a trade. So basically creating liquidity. Is that concept understood? Anybody has a question? No? Then shall we proceed to the next slide? Concept of direct quotations and indirect quotations. This is just a theoretical importance, but it is very important in the practical life, practical dealing life, to know that there is something like this and then use that in a convenient manner. Now, direct quotation is when a value of a unit of foreign currency is expressed in terms of home currency. Example, 1 US dollar equals 201 rupees. Value of unit of foreign currency, US dollar 1, is expressed in terms of home currency, Sri Lankan rupee 201. That is a direct quote. Other is that indirect quote, where value of a unit of home currency expressed in terms of foreign currency. Can you give me an example? Anybody? Can you give me an example, please? Nobody speaking.
So LKR USD?
LKR?
USD?
Yeah, you are right. If you say LKR 1 equals USD, yes, so much USD. It will be 0.00 something.
Yes, sir.
0.000 something. I'll let you know how to arrive at that as well. But in the world, in the practical world, there are indirect quoted currencies like the sterling pound, euro, and Australian dollar. They quote the unit currency as the home currency. Now, in the UK and elsewhere in the world as well, always when it comes to sterling pounds, they use 1 sterling pound equals $1.2350. Or in Sri Lanka, we call it 1 sterling pounds equal to 278 rupees. So that's a indirect quote. And Australia as well. Australia also do the same thing. Australia quotes 1 Aussie dollar equals US dollars 0.7850. So that's an indirect quotation. All right. So we will see the importance of that. Transposing rates or reversing a quotation. For example, we have a US dollar and Australian dollar rate. The second line, Australian dollar 1 equals US dollar 0.7396, bid 0.7435 is the usual way of quotations. Am I right? You've seen it. But you can convert it to a direct quote as well. How? You can make it to 1 US dollar equals Australian dollars 1.3450, 1.3520. The formula appearing at the bottom of the slide is a simple solution, which is, we call it transposing the rate. Right? When we know that US dollar 1 equals Australian dollar 1.3450 bid and Australian dollar 1.3520 offer, we can take those two rates and divide 1 by those rates and arrive at the exact answer given on the second line 0.7396 and 0.7435. You can use a calculator and then just try this. Please divide 1 by 1.3450 and arrive at the rate of 0.7435, the higher number. That becomes the offer. That's the only difference. 1.3450 was the bid on the direct quotation. When you transpose 1 divided by 1.3450 gives the answer 0.7435. That is the offer rate under indirect quote. How? Naturally, when the unit currency changes, the buyer or seller changes. So therefore, if you think a little bit, and arithmetically as well, when you divide 1 by a smaller number, you get a higher answer. Against when you divide 1 by a larger number, you get a small answer. So when you divide 1 by 1.3520, you get 0.7396, which is the bid under indirect quote. Whereas 1.3520 was offer under direct quote. You see? So when that boy said $1 equal to 201, you can also make 1 rupee equals US dollars 0.00 something. So it is exactly how you can do it is divide 1 by 201 rupees, you get the 1 rupee equals so much US dollars. Basically, you will get a second decimal or third decimal point value in terms of US dollar for Sri Lankan rupee, 1 Sri Lankan rupee. Everybody understood? Any question? This technique will be very useful when you have to all of a sudden convert one currency using two or three currencies and arriving at the value of one combination of different currencies. There are examples. I think I will discuss some MCQs, sample MCQs using that as well. So therefore, please run your fingers through a calculator and then acquaint yourself or familiar yourself with these conversions from direct quotation to indirect quotation and indirect quotation to direct quotation, which is going to really help you in the middle of transaction with a customer to find out the value of different combination of currencies. Cross rate. Actively traded currencies quoted bilaterally, like US dollar, yen, euro, US dollar, GBP, US dollar. Those currencies are actively quoted. So therefore, they are quoted bilaterally and their value reflects those currencies' values. Where there is no bilateral quote, a cross-currency rate may be calculated for any two currency using a common currency. Say, example, US dollar. Say for value of, to find out the value of a Indian rupee to Sri Lankan rupee, or a value of a yuan to Sri Lankan rupee. First, you have to find out value of USD value of in yuan or Indian rupee. And then we do some examples so that you are able to familiarize yourself. Basically, when we come across a currency like Sri Lankan rupee, we live in Sri Lanka, so it's important to us. We have to, in the international market, we have to go through the mainly traded currency pairs and obtain the value of those currency pairs and obtain the rupee value of a third or fourth currency by calculating these, adapting these formulas and calculating the value of different pairs of currencies. So those currencies are called cross currencies, cross currency rates. So I have used these two currency pairs. One USD equals Japanese yen 149.50 bid, 150.40 offer. Now DEM is Deutsche Mark. One USD equals Deutsche Mark 1.5650 bid, 1.5660 offer. How do you find out value of one Deutsche Mark in terms of yen or Deutsche Mark yen exchange rate? To find out the Deutsche Mark yen exchange rate. Basically, the unit currency is going to be Deutsche Mark. So therefore, you have to bring that pair of currencies to the denominator. So therefore, 149.50 yen bid price of the US dollar has to be divided by the larger value of or the offer rate of USD Deutsche Mark 1.5660, because to obtain a lower value or the bid. Then when you divide 149.50 by 1.5660, you will get 95.47. In other words, one Deutsche Mark will be bid at yen 95.47. To find out the offer, you divide 150.40 by smaller number 1.5650 and arrive at 96.10 yen offer rate for Deutsche Mark. I hope it is clear. Basically, here we have to use diagonal currency pairs. Diagonal. The 149.50 has to be divided by 1.5650. 150.40 has to be divided by 1.5660. Then only arithmetically, numerically, you will get a lower. You will get a higher number here and a lower number here. All right. So this is how the cross rates are used to arrive at the Deutsche Mark value of yen. Deutsche Mark yen is not normally quoted bilaterally. These two currency pairs may be quoted bilaterally always. So using these two currency pairs, one can find out Deutsche Mark value of Japanese yen by using this formula. So similarly, rupee value of certain currencies which are not normally quoted can be found out in that manner. Now the practical difficulty comes in where this is the theoretical value of Deutsche Mark in yen, bid and offer. But due to demand and supply, there can be more demand for yen, there can be more demand for Deutsche Mark, and this can slightly change. In other words, the quoting bank can shift this onto a lower side or higher side, depending on the profit margin that the bank needs to keep from that particular customer. The more natural way to happen is that the spread between 95.47 and 96.10 is mostly widened. So therefore, any demand shock or supply shock can be averted or absorbed by the quoting bank. So in the international market, the more quoted currencies, bid and offer is narrower, but bilaterally not quoted currencies, bid and offer is wider. So that's the natural thing to happen. Okay, so any questions up to this slide? No? I hope everybody is clear. Because there can be multiple choice questions involving practical situations where this fundamental thinking, technical techniques has to be used to find out the correct answer. And in an exam scenario, time allowed is limited. For one question, maybe 1 minute, 2 minutes. So you have to, unless you know the formula and how to use it, you may not be able to get the correct answer. So we step into the forward market. As we discussed prior to the New Year vacation, spot market is delivery in 2 working days for the wholesale market. And for the retail market, it is basically delivery now. Basically, when a retail customer walks into a licensed commercial bank to buy or sell foreign currency, it is deliveries of the same day or delivery now. As against forward market quotes, price quoted now for delivery of currency at a future time or future date. Say for import, to finance an import happening in 3 months' time, you obtain a rate now and you pay in 3 months' time using that rate obtained today. So basically the spot rate obtained from the spot market has to be adjusted to reflect the future value. It is again logically very simple. The two interest rates of the two currencies is compared, and the differential of the two interest rates that obtained and adjusted the value of the spot market to reflect the forward rate. There again, as we explained in the previous slide, the demand and supply may tilt the actual arithmetical value that you obtain using the interest rate differential of these two currencies. We'll discuss some examples so that you will understand better. The forward points or the resultant of the two interest rate differential is called forward points. Forward points are either added to the spot rate or subtracted from the spot rate, depending on their values between the two currencies are rising or falling. Now the meaning rising or falling is whether the interest rate of one currency is higher or the interest rate of the currency is lower compared to the other currency. Now those days I can remember when the rupee interest rate was in the region of 15% or 20%. US dollar interest rate was 2 or 3%. I think maximum we saw US dollar interest rate was 6%. So 1 USD equals 150 rupees. If the USD interest rate is 2% and the rupee interest rate is 10%, exchange rate, spot rate, 1 USD equals 150 rupees. And when one has a US dollar, it can be earning only 2% in the deposit market by depositing the dollar what he has. Whereas the other party who has the rupee can earn 10%, where the interest rate is 10%. So therefore, when one customer wants dollars for his transaction, and he approaches a person who has dollars, who have been earning 2% only, and he negotiates a rate for the rupee value for the dollar that he wants to borrow or buy on the person who has dollars. So the person who has dollars will be very happy to have the rupees because rupee will be giving him a return of 10%. So if A has dollars and B has rupees, A had been earning 2%, B had been earning 10%. So in 1 month's time, if the B needs dollars to pay for his foreign currency transaction or for import, he is asking A, B is asking A for a forward rate, 1 month forward rate. The calculation is simple. Calculation is that A is going to keep the dollar for 1 month, earning only 2%. Whereas B is going to keep the rupee for the next 1 month, earning 10%. But B need dollars. But B wants to delay giving rupees to A, which can be earning 10% for A, and he need a commitment from A to sell him dollars and buy rupees in 1 month forward. So basically, A will ask, I'm foregoing 8%, meaning 10 minus 2%, 8% for 1 month by holding onto the dollar to give you in 1 month's time. That A is losing 8%. Agreed? So therefore, A will demand to be compensated for the 8% lost income or opportunity loss from B by way of the exchange rate. How does he do it? If the 150 rupee per dollar spot rate adjusted for that 8% interest rate differential gives you 10 rupees. 150 rupees spot rate plus 10 rupees. 160 rupees is the forward 1 month rate fixed on day one for the 1 month forward. So in 1 month's time, B has to give 160 rupees for each dollar that he is going to buy from A. So which means there is a forward premium, 150 rupees spot rate per dollar, 10 rupees forward points, 150 plus 10 rupee is 160, forward point 10 rupees, 160. So the forward 1 month forward rate is 160 rupees per dollar. So basically what has happened is, although B did not want to part with the 10 rupee yielding, the 10% yielding rupee to A on day one, he had to pay the forward points or swap points to A by way of exchange rate, forward rate. So A did not lose interest earning for the 1 month, although he held on to the dollar because of B, commitment to B, he had to hold on to the dollar, earning only 2%. So 2% plus that 10 rupee forward point by way of exchange rate, reflecting the 8% interest rate differential, A is back to interest earning of 10%. I think that is a simple, I was able to put it very simply, how the interest rate adjustment happens to the forward points. So the forward points are added when it is a premium. US dollar yielding 2%, rupee yielding 10%. The commodity currency of the dollar lower yielding and will be expensive in the forward rate. So therefore it's at a premium. Home currency or the quarter currency at higher interest rate, it will be at a discount against the dollar. So it will be at a discount against the US dollar. If we compute the same, using the same numbers, using 1 rupee equals 1 divided by 150 rupees, answer may be 0.0020 or something, then it will be a discount. It will be a discount. We have to subtract. The forward points has to be subtracted. So it is logically very simple, but arithmetically applying that it can be little complicated. So therefore, I suggest that please work out 1 or 2 examples and then know your workings, especially for the exam. And then also it will be important for your day-to-day practical businesses. So to repeat again, forward points are added when it's a premium to the spot rate and arriving at the forward market rate. So forward points are subtracted from the spot rate and then forward rate is arrived at in the forward market. Forward points reflect the comparative interest rates. The example 10% minus 2%, 8% is comparatively used between the two currencies and is adjusted or transformed into the forward points and adjusted to arrive at the forward rates. Is that good? Any questions? I'm sure there are questions. We can please discuss among yourself as well. And if there are any questions, we can discuss tomorrow. So managing foreign exchange risk. Transactions involving foreign currencies are exposed to forex risk, FX risk. There are 2 varieties of foreign exchange risk: transaction exposure and translation exposure. Risk that changes in foreign exchange rates will affect the firm's current transactions for future cash flows is called transaction exposure. Today, the dollar rate is 191. Tomorrow, the importer, if the rate depreciates to 200 rupees by tomorrow, the import has to pay 200. So the risk that the importer runs is 9 rupees, 200 minus 191. Transaction exposure. Translation exposure, the impact of foreign exchange rates changes on the firm's financial statements. There are companies, there are individual exporters, importers who had contracted already, reflecting their balance sheets. They would have bought dollars to fund their imports, or they would have entered into forward exchange contract to sell their foreign exchange earning exporters to the banks. And if the exchange rates changes now compared to the current market rate, already contracted rates, which are reflected in the financial statements, there's exposure. So that is called translation exposure. There are a lot of companies who have bought foreign exchange assets and liabilities to establish businesses in other countries, like Damro establishing their business enterprises in Mumbai or India, or Bangladesh, and those countries. They would have converted their rupee assets, Sri Lankan rupee assets, to Indian rupees or Bangladesh takas. So when the Bangladesh taka rupee rate changes, those already invested in assets or liabilities, value changes. That is called translation exposure against transaction exposure, which is foreign exchange rates reflecting the current transactions. So they have to be managed. Hedging is a firm may hedge against foreign exchange risk by entering into forward foreign exchange contracts. Forward contract can be used to hedge the foreign exchange contracts, foreign exchange risk, and then exposure can be minimized or mitigated. Forward exchange contract fixes today foreign exchange rate applicable for foreign currency receivable or payable at a future date. Forward exchange rate. Firms may use internal hedging techniques as well. What are the internal hedging techniques? Those who have import commitments to buy raw material for the exports, then import rates and export rates. So they can use the export earnings to finance in foreign currency form to finance the import raw material for the next shipment. They did not essentially convert the foreign currency earnings of the exports, but they can ask the bank to use the foreign currency earnings of exports to finance the next shipment of import of raw material and apply those foreign currency form itself. Those are hedging techniques. So there are the CFOs of each companies will schedule or list the import commitment expenses, export earnings in foreign currency forms, and try to hedge their matching or match the earnings and expenses and mitigate the exposure. So that means internal hedging. Right. Factors affecting the foreign exchange rates or determinants of foreign exchange rates. Basically, it's the demand and supply that happens for each currency, as explained using the tsunami example as well a while ago. Macroeconomic variables such as inflation rate, interest rate. When a currency's interest rate increases, the demand for that currency increases. So therefore, investors in other currencies will want to buy this higher interest rate currency to earn higher income. At the same time, even if there is high interest rate, if the inflation increases in that country, the real return will be interest rate minus inflation rate. So therefore, real return or the nominal interest rate minus inflation rate, real return will be material factor for the determinant of the foreign exchange rate. Then the commodity prices, of course, reflected the inflation, all right, but the commodity price rising again will affect the foreign exchange rate. Random adjustments, government intervention, and more importantly, expectation. As evident by the Sri Lankan markets, if the central bank do not monitor the foreign exchange rate, particularly the dollar rupee rate, market participants would expect the dollar to hit 200 rupees or 250 rupees in no time. So the expectation happens in reality. So therefore, human expectation, it is material to determine the exchange rate of a currency pair. So I think we have come up to the time of 6 p.m. I hope I discussed a little bit of a critical points as well today regarding foreign exchange market and techniques as well, which are going to be important for your exam particularly, and then also going to be very important in your day-to-day business transactions, not only today, in the future, in years to come. It will be very handy for you to learn more on those to improve your professionalism and your skill level in carrying out your businesses. So let's tomorrow at 4:30 p.m. At the same time, I want to remind you to submit your assignments. I guess only 14 people have submitted so far. There are 15 participants and then 2 new entrants. There should be 17 altogether. So 3 more assignments to come. I think the 2 new nominees wanted 3 more days. Well and good. So by 23rd, we need to see 17 assignments, which will earn you 50% of the marks for the semester 1. And second point I want to remind you is that the MCQ questions for the first semester is going to be held, and that MCQ exam will be on a Saturday at the Institute of Bankers, Saturday morning at about 9 o'clock in the morning. It will be a 1 hour, 1.5 hour test. You will be allowed to carry only a calculator and your pen. The Institute of Bankers will supply you with your answer script and question papers. You have to sit independently with each other and answer the question paper and submit to the invigilator. And then you will see your marks thereafter, after the exam. That is the first semester exam. 50% for the exam and 50% for the assignment. All right. Okay. Then thank you very much, and good evening to everyone. And to remind you again, if you need to ask any more questions, please feel free to ask. But please go through the slides once again this evening or tonight and practice of the arithmetical conclusions, calculations, so that it will be helpful. Okay,
Sir,
thank you. Yes.
Sir, the exam will be held on this Saturday.
Now we'll let you know. We are making some arrangements. We'll let you know.
Okay, sir. Okay, thank you.
Either this Saturday or coming Saturday, one of the two.
Okay, sir.
All right. Any other questions?
Nothing, sir.
Oh, good. Anybody else? Any question? All good? How we have lost some participants, is it? Oh, they signed off. We have only 10 participants. All right. Anyway, good luck to everyone.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Good
sir.
night.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Good night.
Hello. Hello.
Yeah. Yes, Malidu.
Sir, May exam එක sir මේ Saturday තියෙන්නේ නැත්නම් next Saturday ද?
අපි තාම arrangements දානවා. අපි කියන්නම් Institute of Bankers කතා කරලා කියන්නම්.
sir.
Sir,
ඔව් sir මේ Saturday සමහරක් වෙලාවට මේ එකක් issue එකක් වෙයි මට මේ වෙන්න. ඒකයි මම sir පොඩ්ඩක් අහුවේ.
Hari, I'll try and have it on next Saturday then.
Right, okay sir. Thank you sir. Next Saturday sir හැබැයි මේ first වැටෙන්නේ මේ කම් කර දිනේ issue එකක් එහෙම.
Are you going to go to participate in May Day rallies or no?
No. නෑ මං ඉවාඩු තියෙන හින්දා එහෙම issue එකක් වෙන එකක් නෑ මට මේ මං සර් පොඩ්ඩක් inform කරලා මේ Saturday පොඩි issue එකක් වෙන හින්දා.
Menaka online ඉන්නවද? Menaka? Anyway, Malidu, the exam will be in the morning, ne?
Yes sir.
Mayday rallies won't begin in the morning now.
morning. කමක් නෑ සර්.
Okay. Menaka,
සර් ඔව් සර්
මේ අපි exam එක මේ සැටර්ඩේ තියන්න නැතුව first semester exam එක ඊළඟ සැටර්ඩේ තියන්න කියලා request එකක් තියෙනවා.
ඔව් සර් ඊළඟ සැටර්ඩේ පොඩි ප්‍රශ්නයක් තියෙනවා සර් බෑර අර මේ
මයි පළවෙනිද නේද?
පළවෙනිද හින්දා
මයි පළවෙනිද classes නැත් මොකද නැද්ද institute එකේ?
නෑ ගුප්ත arrange කරේ නෑ සර් අපිට සන්ඩේ ගන්න පුළුවන්ද?
Sunday ගන්න පුළුවන් නේ?
සන්ඩේ පුළුවන්.
Okay, that's good. Maladu, Sunday, 2nd May won't be a problem for you, no, Maladu?
නෑ සර් second May okay සර්. second May okay. මට මේ weekend එක තමයි සර් issue එක තිබ්බේ. second May okay සර්.
Right. All right. We'll see.
Thank you very much.
The exact date.
Thank you very much sir.
Okay, good night.